How long does it take to make a game? For most commercial games that time lies somewhere between 2 and 4 years, but everything between 10 minutes and 10 years is entirely possible. And it's also almost definitely gonna take way longer than you think. In this video I want to help you make an educated guess on how long it will take you to create your game, and I'll do the same for my own indie game project, Will You Snail?
Oh geez, you're making progress.
So why does making a game almost always take way longer than you think? I want you to picture your game as a square. The surface area of that square is the work you need to get done in order to finish it. On the x-axis is all of the content you have to produce for your game, and on the y-axis is the quality and the polishing of that content. Now here is the fallacy a lot of us fall into. Let's assume 50% of your content is done, and it's at 50% of the polishing you want to have for your final game. How much percent of your game have you already completed? Intuitively it feels like 50%. But with this visualization we obviously know that's not true, because it's only 25%. This fallacy is even more dangerous when you just got started. Maybe you think, wow, this is going really quickly, I already have 10% completed. But yeah, it's only 1%. Now I want you to imagine your game as a giant pyramid, because, you thought this was everything? No, it gets worse. Building the first layer of a pyramid is easy. You just put the bricks next to each other on the ground. Now the problem is, the higher your pyramid gets, the harder it is to get those blocks up there. And in game development that is the equivalent to your project gets bigger, clunkier, it's harder to find stuff, load and compile times increase, testing your game takes longer, fixing bugs takes longer, even implementing new code takes way longer. So this is probably not even 25%, this is probably 20%. Now last but not least, making a game is also like biking through a valley. You start out super motivated and it's a downhill battle, but sooner or later you'll run out of steam. All of the fun tasks in your project will already be gone, so all that's left to do is tedious and annoying stuff you don't want to do. You're starting to get burned out, and obviously your mental state heavily influences your rate of progression. You will need more breaks, you will get distracted more easily, and just in general it consumes a lot of willpower because you have to fight the urge to stop and turn around. Considering your motivation levels, 20% is more like 15. Oh, you think we can get this number even lower? I mean, sure, we haven't even talked about feature creep yet. Because guess what? Your square magically keeps expanding while you're trying to fill it up. Oh, and did I already mention there might be a broken brick in the very first layer of your pyramid? And in order to replace it, you need to pull everything down again. Also remember that real life gets in the way when you least expect it. For example, your hard drive could crash or you could break your arm. So all of that is why it will take a lot longer than you think. So how long will it take you to make a game? There are a lot of factors, but undoubtedly the most important ones are the size of your project and the size of your team. Filling a giant square alone can take 5 years or more. Filling a small square together can be done in 3 months or less. If you want to finish your game in a reasonable amount of time, you either need a small square or a big team. But is your square small enough? Or is it already too big? I'd say, let's just run the math. Here you can see I just made a giant list with all of the tasks I still need to get done. It's quite a lot. And then next to it is an estimation of how many hours I think that task will take. So for example, writing the menu system, I think that will take me 4 hours. So you're basically measuring the size of your square, and the further you are into development, the more precise your estimation is going to be. So if you want to make a really good assumption of how long it will take you to create a game, I recommend creating a vertical slice. That means you only produce a tiny fraction of your content, but you get it up to 100% of the polish.
Alright, try to give me a challenge, will you?
There's only one level in Will You Snail so far, but it is already very polished and it will almost look identical in the final game. The advantage of that workflow is that now I know how long it takes me to get the content to the quality level I want, and I can make a good, educated guess on how long it will take me to finish the rest of the game. And then I add all of that up. Here I have different categories. For example, here finishing the vertical slice, all of that I think will be about 130 hours if I add up all of the tasks. Then here are the regular levels. These times here are per level, and then I multiply that by 20 because I want to have about 20 of these levels. That equals about 380 hours. When you make these estimates, remember that everything will take a lot longer than you think. And then here I have just a bunch of extra time for stuff like marketing, for composing the music, some extra time for the boss battles, some extra time for Easter eggs, some extra time for polishing. You really want to cover everything here. And then here, is the grand total. So if we add up all of those tasks above, we get a grand total of 1100 hours. But even if you made quite a generous guess, you shouldn't stop there. Depending on your experience in game development, you should add another buffer somewhere between 20 and 100%. That's simply due to the fact that when you're making a game for the first time, there will be a lot of things you'll forget in your calculation. But even with a lot of experience, you almost always need that extra 20%. If we add 20%, that's 1,320 hours. How many hours per week can I work on this project? For me, that's 20 hours because the other 20 hours is spent on YouTube and community management. So if I take no holidays, no vacation, finishing this project will take me 66 weeks. So obviously we should add some vacation time as well. Once again, be quite generous with that because finishing your project faster than expected is not a big deal, but if it's the other way around, that could potentially mean your game will never see the day of light. We end up at almost 2 years. That's a little longer than I would have hoped, but I guess 2 years to finish Will You Snail sounds about realistic. So here comes the time to make a very tough call. Because now you need to decide, are you willing to invest that amount of time? Do you believe in your project? Do you trust it? Most of you know my situation. I recently quit my studies, now I live at home with my dad. So there is a time window now where I can try to make this game development and YouTube thing work. And I'm kind of confident, but 2 years? That means this game might very well be the only chance I get. Now the last and maybe most important tip I have for you is be a little smart about how you approach things. For example, just start filling out a very small square, your minimum viable product. If it's well received, you can still turn it into a bigger game. If you start with a big square, just make sure you have some opportunities to scale down if necessary. For Will You Snail, I already have a couple of ideas what I would cut from the game if I wanted to reduce the scope. If I wanted to, I could turn this 2-year project into a 3-month project at any time, and I think that makes it a lot less scary. Now, will I commit? And how will this project continue?